Since 2003, this is The Sports Source with your host, John Pennington.
The Sports Source is presented by Junk Be Gone, Pipe Wrench, and the Garza Law Firm.
The Sports Source starts now.
Good Sunday morning and welcome into Smoky Stadium. We are live in Kodak, Tennessee. Today is the final game ever for the Smokies in Kodak at Smoky Stadium. So we're up here live. WATE will be broadcasting the game live later this afternoon, so you can just stick right here and throw the remote out the window. Over the next hour and a half, though, we're going to be talking about Tennessee football. A little bit of Kent State, mainly about Oklahoma, though. So we've got a full crew. Part here, part back at the studio. It's going to be a big one. You get to see our hair blow around because none of us are professional enough to bring hairspray. It's big time TV, so let's have a little fun with it. First segment of our show brought to you by our friends at Junk Be Gone. And folks, they do a tremendous job. I use them all the time. Their 15-yard driveway dumpsters are perfect for residential and commercial cleanouts and cleanups. Also great for construction sites. But if you don't want to do the work yourself, line up a Junk Be Gone two-person crew to do the heavy lifting for you. JunkBeGone.biz. I've told you about them for years because I've believed in them for years. You will too if you use them. Junk Be Gone. All right, let's welcome in the first round of today's panelists. We have right here Jimmy Himes. Jimmy, thanks.
Thanks for having me.
We feel a little tighter here. It's a little different, but we do have more of a breeze going. Will Overstreet, VFL. Thanks for joining us. And right down there, Bob Hodge. We still have on today's show coming at you Sterling Hinton, Chuck Cavaleris. Of course, we got to do the Cavaleris line. Josh Ward, Daniel Hood, Marlon Wallace. We got a full show coming your way. Tennessee wins 71-0 last night. We all kind of close. Yeah, and it wasn't that close. We all kind of chuckled last week when Chuck threw out 64.5. Mm-hmm. Last laugh goes to Chuck. It was the most points by Tennessee since 1929. They led 65-0 at half. They scored 37 in the first quarter. All of those were UT records, and they still haven't allowed a touchdown to an opponent in 4 straight games on defense. We always do top takeaways, and Jimmy, I'll start with you, but I'll give mine first. My top takeaway is they should have just gone ahead and scheduled St. Francis, the team that beat Kent State. That might have been a better matchup.
Kent State's the worst football team I've seen at Neyland Stadium. They're pathetic.
Including FCS teams.
Anybody. Yeah, they were terrible. And they lost to an FCS team, as you mentioned, with St. Francis. The other thing is that at least Tennessee took care of business. You know, you look around, heck, Michigan struggled with Arkansas State. The week before, Northern Illinois beat Notre Dame. Georgia didn't play well and barely beating Kentucky. So there have been other teams, and I understand the competition was better in those games, but other teams have taken their eye off the bullseye a little bit. At least Tennessee didn't do that. And I think one reason that they don't do that is they're having a lot of fun playing football. That offense, they go out there thinking, let's score 50. The defense trying to pitch a shutout again. So I think that the fun that they're having almost intercepts the chance of them having a letdown in a game like this.
I don't want to take too many shots at Michigan, though. That team from Arkansas State, I understand they play with 5-star heart.
Oh, yes, they do.
That's for sure.
Will and Bob, top takeaways.
You could have scored 120 if you wanted to. You basically played on air. I mean, the best thing that you took away from this game, you did get some young guys in, and you got them reps. I don't know how good those reps were. I mean, even in that kind of game, I mean, those guys have much better reps in practice.
Yeah.
So it just overall, it was a game to get out injury-free. But there's not as much you can take away from that bad a competition because they were that bad. It was on. I mean, literally, it was on air at times.
There was a hole on every run. They couldn't tackle. They couldn't cover. They couldn't snap the ball.
They couldn't snap the ball. Three big bad snaps. I mean, it was as bad a team as you've ever seen.
Bob Hodge, takeaways.
Yeah, my biggest takeaway is so far Tennessee against the lesser competition. Let's leave North Carolina State. They're playing clean, and you watch the game, and there are some things Tennessee can clean up, but you're not going out against these guys. You're keeping focused. Your offensive line isn't just grabbing people. I guess they don't have to, but you're not seeing illegal procedure penalties. You're not seeing your defense jump offside. You're not seeing that sort of thing, and so that goes to what Jimmy and you were talking about, that they are staying more focused.
Right.
because those are kind of sloppy penalties that happen when you're not really into things. And so I think the fact that Tennessee, no, that is a terrible team they played, but you went out there and played a pretty good, clean football game with a couple of exceptions.
Which I think does get back to just the overall culture aspect of what Josh Heupel is building. Now we're going to find out more. We're going to do a lot of talking about Oklahoma today. We're going to find out a lot more about this team next week. It's probably going to be the first time they get punched in the mouth a little bit. We'll see how they respond. But the culture of that program, the fact that they do take it just one day at a time, they constantly repeat something that Ollie Lane says to me all the time on our Saturday kickoff show, that Heupel has drilled into that team, and now the players are saying it last night in the postgame, and that is, it's really Tennessee versus Tennessee. We're not worried about the guy across the field. We've got to beat what we did last week, and then next week we'll beat that and keep improving. And it does say something for the fact that he continues to get these guys to focus, because we've seen Tennessee teams that haven't in the past.
Yeah, they really didn't have to worry too much about Kent State, did they? But I think that's a good point. I think it speaks to the culture. I think it speaks to the mindset that Josh Heupel has instilled in this team. And you did hear it repeatedly from the players that were made available to the media after the game. And I think that's hard to do. And I know you hear coaches all the time talk about, well, you're only given 12 opportunities that you know of. And so you should be able to get ready every week. But we see every week teams are not always ready to play. And so for Tennessee to be there, the other thing is, I think the way Tennessee runs their offense, I think it's really harder for somebody to upset them.
Yes.
They come at this warp speed. They wear you out on offense, and their defensive line is so deep. The defensive line wears out the opposing offensive line.
They've got a much higher floor than they've had. And I don't know, you always say for like the military academies, they run the triple option because it's a bit of an equalizer. That system's kind of the same thing. It's not an equalizer, it's more the opposite. It raises the floor a little bit. If you're not just hammered with injuries, it's hard to ever picture this team dropping less than 7 wins in a season, which, those kinds of things happen in football. Good programs will occasionally have one of those seasons that comes out of nowhere. With this offense, it's hard to imagine Tennessee having one of those 4-win years where everything went wrong. It would almost have to be, they were just decimated by injuries.
Well, and to an extent, if you look at their offense, it sounds pretty simple. If you load the box, they're going to throw it on you. If you spread the field, they're going to run it on you. Yeah. They seem to have an answer for whatever you want to do, unless you have great personnel like a Georgia.
Yeah. You have to have a great front four, right, to really stop this offense. You've got to be great in that front seven where you can have 6 guys and they can take away the run. That's the only way you're really going to be able to stop this offense from scoring any points.
You go back to last year in the Austin Peay game, which the Austin Peay worlds better than Kent State, obviously. But if you go back to that game last year, you had a lot of missed tackles in that game. You had missed defensive assignments. And once again, even accounting for the poor competition, you didn't see missed tackles yesterday. In the first half, I remember one really, that guy should have been brought down, and he ended up gaining, I think, 4 yards. Might have been their biggest play of the game, actually, for Kent State. Was a 4-yard gain. But all of that keeps coming back to me is how focused this group is, because how many times, even when Tennessee was good, say back in the 90s, in the early 2000s, and a team like this came in, and it was sloppy for a half. It was sloppy. Now, you ended up winning 44-14, but you didn't. This yesterday, you said they could have scored 120. It would have been interesting to see what they could have scored had that been what we want to do.
Yeah.
Well, the Kent State coach must have been wondering if they were going to try it when they're onside kicking there in the first half of 50. All right. When we come back, the best player on the field yesterday, that'll be a competition because there were a lot of good ones. The worst decision, I think I know where that one's going, and the biggest disappointment. Yep, we got to answer it. Come on back. We've got much more to come, including a huge deep dive into Tennessee, Oklahoma. Come on back on the Sports Source Live from Smoky Stadium. And welcome back into Smoky's Park and the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by A.G. Hines Company, Nudura Concrete Forms, cultured stone. When it comes to materials that look the best, that are the most cost efficient, that are the most energy efficient, A.G. Hines Company carries them. They've been around for a century, but the stuff they carry, man, it's cutting edge. It's the stuff of the future. If you got a building project coming up in East Tennessee, you better start it at A.G. Hines Company, or you'll be making a mistake. Those guys can take good care of you. All right, welcome back in. We are live at Smoky Stadium. We are here because it's the final game ever here in Kodak. They've been here since 2000. We'll talk about that just a little bit later on. But I appreciate all these guys for driving up here this morning, navigating the rolling roadblocks on the interstate. Thanks to the Tennessee Highway Patrol for their help. Chuck Cavaleris right here. Chuck, thanks for being here. Sterling Hinton, VFL, thanks for joining us, man. All right. Did you lose? Are you up? I figured you'd be worn out after 71-0 last night.
That was a warm up, baby. Even push some of the cheerleaders, baby. I'm ready to ride.
Good deal. All right. We always run through 3 questions. We do it every week, regardless of win, lose. Well, there is no more draw, but you get the gist. These are tough questions. So if you sit there, why are they saying that after a win? Because we're going to say it after a loss too. We say it every week. So here we go. Best player on the field. I will start with Bob.
I'm going to go with Dylan Sampson. Yes, sir. I mean, he is explosive. I'm really excited about this week because before the season, I said, hey, is he going to be able to do what Jalen Wright did between the tackles, run with the power? And this week we're going to find out. I've changed my mind about that. I think he is now. I don't think he's the same kind of back as Jalen Wright. I think he's got more wiggle, more breakaway speed. But I think he is a much tougher, better runner. I think he has outstanding vision. So I'm going to go with Dylan Sampson, best player on the field.
Excellent player. Sterling.
I'm co-side. I'm right there with Bob on Dylan Sampson. I mean, I'm just amazing how you read some of these things online and people say, well, he doesn't look as explosive as he was last year. Doesn't look as quick as he was last year.
Yeah.
Well, he's doing it with so much more explosion, and his quickness is less motion in his quickness. So he's not doing all this. He got around one DB as if he was a cone yesterday.
Oh, yeah.
Game of shit. Got around him and got back straight right on that same stride. So that takes an incredible amount of training, and I'm happy for the success he's having right now.
He's added some weight. He's bulked up a little to try and probably be a little bit more like the Jalen Wright. The one thing we haven't seen from Dylan Sampson so far, and they haven't needed it, no one's been able to tackle him for the beginning, but Jalen Wright would get guys on his back and carry them.
Get five yards with 3 guys on.
We haven't seen that yet. Maybe this is the week we see it.
It raises the question. When does somebody mention Dylan Sampson?
I was just getting ready to.
Dylan Sampson Heisman. Okay, well,
You know,
How about Deshaun Bishop?
well, now, wait a second. I thought you were about to say Dylan Sampson.
Dylan Sampson. Yeah, Dylan Sampson. But you were 1 yard away from having 3 rushers with 100 yards, right? How long has that been since that happened?
Wow.
So you had 2. I mean, and we could say a lot of the same things about Deshaun Bishop, right? He looks bigger, faster. I don't think
He's got more burst than I thought.
Right. I don't think you lose a whole lot. And it was good to see Peyton Lewis out there. I didn't realize he had 99 yards rushing.
All right, so best player on the field, Dylan Sampson, though?
Yes.
All right, worst decision.
Oh,
that
gosh.
could be either team, that could be coaches, that could be whatever.
I think the worst decision was not accepting the running clock when Kent State had the chance to do that in the second half. And I've got one more if I could sneak it in. If you want me to hold off, I can.
No. We'll come back to you on the next one.
All right.
On the running clock, worst decision. Everybody's going to say that, I think. There's a lot of people thinking that. I just think you might as well shut your program down if you do it. I don't see how you recruit. That is, you were telling your team that we can't compete with the big boys, and also you're telling every recruit in the country this is a Pee-wee team. We play by Pee-wee rules. I get it.
Yeah.
It would have looked better, but I don't think you could have done it.
A coach is always a coach, no matter what level he's coaching. And coaches are the most incredible, competitive people out there, and they're not going to just take something like that and discount their team that they prepared all week to get ready for.
And for the viewers at home, Tennessee offered it, right?
Yes, Tennessee
offered it, and Kent State said
And that was classy, but still, coaches.
It happens in all other college sports, just about.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other?
I mean,
you really want the worst decision?
Yeah.
The day Kent State was on the other end of the phone and said, yeah, we'll show up in September of 24. It'll be great.
I've got one more.
See, I would say the day Danny White picked up the phone and called.
Called
I'm
them.
sorry. I'll save this for biggest disappointment. Go ahead, Chuck. Well, the other worst
Not the
decision.
quarterback not going under center.
I mean, you got a freshman or a center that can't shap out of the shotgun, right?
Yeah, but apparently they don't do that.
Well, that's who we are. We're Kent
That's right.
State.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, so you have
How
what?
often do you see Tennessee go under center?
5 snaps. Well, then give the center a Valium. Calm him down. They said he was nervous. Well, calm him down.
Yeah, that was
That was
bad.
pathetic, you
Yeah.
know.
But if they could go under center, try. So, okay,
Right.
bad decision to not do that. Biggest disappointment. I'll give you mine because I almost hinted at it. Biggest disappointment for me, this is just, and this isn't anti-Tennessee. If I flew to Foxborough to watch my Patriots and they ran out Harvard to play them, I'm not going to be excited. I'm going to be upset because this is not a real game. I want to see real competition. My biggest disappointment is while Alabama was going and kicking Wisconsin's tail on the road, you're here playing the worst team in college football, and you're going to play the next worst team in college football later in the year.
And you've already played Chattanooga.
And you've already played an FCS team.
Right.
It's atrocious scheduling. I just got a real problem with it. It's my only problem with Danny White. He schedules like a coward.
I'm going to agree with that. I'm going to go, my biggest disappointment in a game that was so offensively nearly perfect was the starting offensive line. Because I thought a few times they let Nico be knocked off his spot. Nico got knocked off his spot. He almost threw one interception down the field. He was rolling to his right. He tried to come back, and luckily the defensive backs weren't good enough to react to it. And he took some hits in a game where he shouldn't have been taking some hits. Now, it was with the ground, the hardest one.
You had a
was with the
slide.
ground.
That's what you're going to. That was my biggest disappointment.
But I thought if you let them, I think for the game, they were officially credited with 4 pressures. It doesn't seem like a big deal.
But it is.
But that is the worst defensive line you're going to see the rest of the season because I don't even think El Paso will see that.
And with Nico, it has to be a disappointment, but he still hasn't been able to slide and get down and protect himself. You look
competitor.
at all the former Tennessee quarterbacks that seem like have a problem with that.
Sterling Hinton, biggest disappointment. You mentioned last week
Yes.
James Pierce.
Yeah.
He's now gone 3 games without a sack.
And I think he's just coiling for that explosion next week, my friend. I mean, I don't even think James has 50 plays on the season. He hasn't played a lot. I think he's fresh. We know what he's capable of. And boy, when they unleash the beast, I'm ready, baby. Let's get it going.
All right, good deal. If there's ever going to be a time to unleash the beast, it's this week at Norman, Oklahoma. All right, when we come back, we'll go back to the studio. We got 3 more members of our panel. We're going to go back to Josh, Daniel, Marlon. They're going to talk about whether Oklahoma is as good as we thought before the season. I think right now everybody's feeling good. The lines are going to come in and set the Vols up as a heavy favorite. We'll see what Chuck does later. But I want to know, are we now suddenly lulled to sleep about Oklahoma? We'll kick it back to the studio next, and it's back to Smoky Stadium a little later. Come on back on the Sports Source.
Welcome back into the Sports Source. Nothing beats fall in the Smokies, unless it's the holidays in the Smokies. Now is the time to get to ParksideCabinRentals.com and pick out the perfect cabin for you and your crew this winter and this holiday season. And when you drive into Gatlinburg, you'll get free parking. That's at Parkside Cabin Rentals. We welcome you back into the Junk Be Gone studios this morning. I'm Josh Ward alongside a couple of former Tennessee defensive linemen, VFL's former teammates, Marlon Wallace and Daniel Hood. Guys, good to see you this morning.
That's it.
So Kent State kind of in the rearview mirror at this point, which you're probably fine with at this point.
Yeah.
On to Oklahoma, the SEC opener, all the anticipation of this game with Oklahoma coming into the SEC. So Oklahoma is a preseason top 20 team a few weeks ago, just like Tennessee. So far, Oklahoma has played 3 non-conference teams that they've been able to beat, but it's kind of been shaky. They haven't looked great to this point. So far, wins against Temple, really bad team, 51-3. Houston last week, 16-12, and then yesterday, a pretty good Tulane team from the Group of 5 level. Oklahoma won 34-19. Now, going into the season, there are questions about Oklahoma's offensive line. There may be even more questions about Oklahoma's offensive line. It was kind of a new-look group. They brought some guys back, but had to bring in some transfers to fill some spots, now dealing with injury up front. Jackson Arnold's the 5-star quarterback who has a ton of talent, athletic, but again, shaky. I don't think has looked as good as Nico to start the season. So I'll ask you this. Is the Oklahoma team that Tennessee will face next week, is it what you expected? What about this game? Does it look easier than maybe you would have predicted 4 weeks ago heading into the season? How do you compare thoughts in the preseason to what you see with Tennessee, Oklahoma now?
I kick it off. I would say Oklahoma's right about where I expected them to be. When you bring in a new quarterback, just like we just brought in Nico, this is his first year officially starting. Venables is a defensive-minded coach. I felt like just looking at the different scores, Temple, not a very good team. You had Houston, decent team, but not on Oklahoma's level. That was a tighter ball game. But I looked at the Tulane game. It's probably their best opponent they've played all season. I watched Tulane a week ago. Explosive. They've got a reputation. They've got expectations as their team. Mm-hmm. And I felt like Oklahoma did a great job yesterday as I watched the game, just kind of imposing their will on them. I think with the quarterback-wise, I think he's going to get better. That's just a part of being young. I think he's going to get better week to week. And then having this game in Oklahoma, night game, this, on the road at that time, Nico's first real road game. I think it's going to be a show-all kind of deal. We'll be able to see how serious this team is, but I think they're right where I expected Oklahoma to be.
So maybe be careful about comparing Nico and Jackson Arnold, what they've done so far, as they both go into the first SEC game.
Right.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, I don't think Oklahoma looks as strong as what I thought they were going to be. I thought about Texas. I thought about Oklahoma. Oh, these are great schools coming in. Then you start looking at it, and you look at the games, like their offense is struggling. The offensive line plays, like you said. The defense has done a really good job against the run, but they hadn't really played anybody that's done that much on the run. Jackson Arnold, to me, reminds me of a Jarrett Garantano at Tennessee. It's like all this hype coming in, but it's not really translated into yards per attempt or other big pass plays. Now, they have got the job done. They have been winning football games, but Tennessee seems like their stock is skyrocketing, and I'm bearish on Oklahoma's stock right now. I don't see that just yet.
Got you. I would disagree with you just because as far as the JG thing goes, this happens a lot, in case you guys don't know. But the JG thing, though, like we had 4 years of that. This is this guy's first season, and I would say 97 rush yards. That's a big deal for us. And as a defensive lineman, a running quarterback can kind of extend plays, get you a first down here, get you out of a bad situation. I think they're better because he's a freshman, and I could be wrong, but as freshmen go, you get better and better and better and better the more you see.
But what we're saying is I think he's a very solid, good average quarterback, but we're comparing him to Nico right now. The guy who's now outscored opponents almost 200 points to 3, I think, in his 8 quarters of play. Not even 8 quarters of play. Well, 4, 6, 10, 12 quarters of play. And it's like when you compare those two, it's like it's obvious which one's elite talent,
right,
and which one has a chance to be a very solid, productive QB, but not elite.
I will say that compared to August, I thought going into this season, Tennessee's defensive line, we believe, hey, this is going to be a strength for Tennessee up front, what they're able to do, and I think they've been that good, maybe better. I think the concerns about the offensive line for Oklahoma have been there, maybe a little bit worse. So my confidence in Tennessee is higher than probably 4 weeks ago. The pause I would have is we have seen this season, and I think every year in college football, week to week. Week 1, South Carolina struggles with Old Dominion, then goes and whips Kentucky. And then Kentucky, after struggling against South Carolina, goes out and takes it to Georgia to where it's a 1-point game until the game finishes. So week to week, we don't know, and we'll get into the road stuff a little bit later, but week to week in college football in general, it's a little different. We don't know. But I say all that, still more confident in Tennessee's chances now than if we had this conversation a month ago.
Absolutely. And Oklahoma looks like a very talented roster, and the roster is much better than we would. But like man-to-man, top to bottom, I would say that they're pretty equal, but it just seems like what Josh Heupel's doing, and you saw him talk about this if you watched the TV game yesterday. He's like, man, we got a nameless, faceless opponent, and we require our guys to show up every day and compete. And Tennessee's team looks like they've completely bought into that identity, and it seems like a very special thing right now. And this will be the weekend to find out.
Marlon, any final thought, the week-to-week aspect?
I would just say that, yes, I think Tennessee is talented enough. They're showing enough to go win the ball game. But I also know that, like you just said, week to week, it's a little different. Like that Georgia game was a big deal yesterday at Kentucky, at night game.
Yeah.
and it makes Georgia look like they're not the number one team in the nation. And Kentucky, if they don't slip up a couple times, has a more relevant chance to be winning that ball game. That's the reason why I say I'm with you on that one. I pause because this is his first real road test at night, Oklahoma. You're going to be up for this game. You're playing against Tennessee. Tennessee's rated high. You're starting a little slower in the season. They're going to be up for this game.
That's the tease, I think, right there. Norman, at night. That's where Tennessee will be next week. When we come back, what about Josh Heupel's teams on the road? What about the noise that will be there in Norman, Oklahoma? A look at that when we come back.
Welcome back into the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by Southeast Termite and Pest Control. Whether you're in Sevier County, as we are today, Knox County, Blount County, wherever in East Tennessee, you should let the same folks who protect my house protect your house. That's Southeast Termite and Pest Control. Visit them online to find out more about them today. Great family-owned business. The Haynes family does a tremendous job, and they have since 1971. All right, welcome back to Smoky Stadium. We have some numbers here we want to show you, talking about Josh Heupel's record on the road and what he has done in his time at Tennessee. Since he arrived in 2021, Tennessee is 20-4 at home, and they're averaging 45 points a game. Neutral sites, they're 4-1, averaging 42 points per game. All right, not a big difference there. That's 24-5. That's pretty good. But when you go on the road, when you go into someone else's house, Josh Heupel and Tennessee are 6-7, and they're averaging 31 points per game. So a big drop there. Next, 9 of his 10 high-scoring games have come at home. So again, it's home, home, home. His record when scoring more than 40, 22-1. Record when scoring between 30 and 39, 7-2. Record when scoring 29 or fewer, 1-9. All right, so you go on the road, you want to put some points up, specifically 30. Back with Chuck, back with Sterling, back with Will. Let's talk about Tennessee's offense on the road. It came up after South Carolina a couple of years ago. It happened at Georgia. You go back to LSU, and that didn't bother them, but that was a day game at LSU in 2021. I asked Ollie Lane, who does Saturday Kickoff with us, about Tennessee's offense. Is there an issue? And I expected the former player to say, no, it's not a big deal. And he didn't. He said, yeah, we had some issues with the silent count last year. Is it a clap? Is it the stomp? What's it going to be? Gentlemen, Tennessee's about to get tested in Norman, Oklahoma. It's Josh Heupel's return to his alma mater, so they're going to be frenzied. First SEC game. How concerned are you about this offense going on the road, Sterling, and having to use the silent count?
Well, using the silent count is always something different for the offense. But I'm certain they're going to practice it well this week. They know what they got to improve on the road. I'm excited about the challenge the offense has. I mean, think about it. Our offense has been incredible this year so far. Now they get an opportunity to go down to Norman and show them how incredible we really are. Yeah, so I'm excited about it.
Yeah, I see what you did there. I watched the debate this week. You took the question, ignored it, and pivoted.
No, I didn't ignore it. I mean, they got the challenge.
How tough is the silent count for? You've got Nico, who's never done it.
Yeah. Well,
at Tennessee, how tough is that going to be for him in an environment like Oklahoma?
And that's why, in my opinion, John, it's easier because the clap, everyone here knows where to go. Now, it doesn't give the rhythm of this cadence so the defense can memorize it, and guys like Will Overstreet come off the end and get you, know your cadence. It's just a clap. Everybody's gone, and the offense has an advantage. We know where to go, and defense has a guess. So I think it's easier, in my opinion.
I would guess most people would disagree with you.
That's okay.
All right.
I'm used to it.
Will, did you like it when the offense across from you had to go to the silent count, or did you hate it?
It depended. It depended if I had a good sign on the other guy or not. But I mean, I think as that you get into it, you're always looking for who's the guy that gives it away. There'll always be an offensive lineman that goes a little bit earlier in the silent count that you actually watch instead of the ball. So there's always somebody there that's telling you a little bit more about what the snap count and what's going on. I do think it's more difficult for the offense just because I think you get used to hearing it, you get used to getting in a rhythm, and this offense moves so fast that at times that's its advantage, right? It's to get up there quick. The silent slows you down a little bit, right? Because you got to get up there, then you got to look around, then somebody's got to make that motion instead of just saying. So it's one extra thing. So it's something that can throw you off. However, we haven't had a year where the coach is able to talk to the quarterback in the headset for periods of time. I wonder how that affects being on the road as well. I think that is when the headset in the headset.
Of course, it cuts off at 15 seconds, but still.
That's more of an advantage to make you better on the road this year than you've had in the past. I think that's a big sign that can help.
Several quarterbacks say they can't hear. Even though it does cut off at 15 seconds, right? There's been several times if the crowd is so loud, like at Neyland Stadium, if you get up there around 100 and something decibels, I don't know the quarterback can hear that, but we'll see that.
In the helmet, right.
And John, because you asked this, I hadn't really thought about this. If you don't go silent, Nico just strikes me as kind of the mild-mannered, soft-spoken guy. Sterling, does he have that kind of voice that everybody could hear? I hadn't thought about that until just now.
And that's a great question, because sometimes voice inflection to get direction to your players or where to be, especially when they call on the audible, that can be interesting. I played with some quarterbacks where voice never been my problem, but their voice was the problem. Trying to get the signal or the actual call, especially during the audible, to your guys, so everybody's on the same page.
Yeah, all right, very good, guys. We are at Smoky Stadium today because it's the final game ever here at Smokies Park. The Knoxville Smokies, the Tennessee Smokies, will be moving back to Knoxville to become the Knoxville Smokies next year. They're moving downtown. WATE this afternoon at 1:30, they got a special before the final game, and then at 2 o'clock they're broadcasting the final game right here. So just take your remote, set it aside. You can stay right here all afternoon. Bo, Amber, Reese, the whole WATE crew is going to be right here bringing you the game, and that comes your way at 1:30, the special. The game is at 2. We appreciate WATE for setting us up out here. We appreciate the Smokies for inviting us out here as well. All right, when we come back, we talked about a potential issue for Tennessee's offense, the noise, silent count. Let's talk about the issues that Tennessee's offense is going to present for the Oklahoma defense. That's next. Come on back on the Sports Source. And welcome back to Smoky Stadium. This segment of the Sports Source brought to you by Madisonville Marine. Boy, when it comes to selection, no one carries more different makes and models of boats in all of East Tennessee. Pricing, well, they ship boats all over the country. They ship them to Florida, they ship them to California. Why would people in Florida and California buy from a dealership in Madisonville? Price, selection. Folks, you don't have to go half the country away. It's right here in East Tennessee. Since 1976, there's no better place to buy a boat than Madisonville Marine. All right, take a look here. When Tennessee has the ball versus Oklahoma's defense, we've got some numbers for you. You see points per game. And look, these are skewed. Tennessee's played one decent team in NC State. Now you got to wonder how good they are. They didn't look great again yesterday against Louisiana Tech, even before Grayson McCall got hurt. Oklahoma has played two decent teams in Houston and Tulane, but still, the numbers kind of skewed at this point. We'll learn a lot more on Saturday, but you can see what Tennessee has done. The offense is unbelievable. And the strength of Oklahoma's team, Jimmy Himes, is the defense. Brent Venables, long time considered a master on the defensive side of the ball. He was kind of a John Chavis type for years who never took the head coaching job, finally jumped into it. Their offense hasn't been as good this year at Oklahoma, so it's about their defense. They're taking on a Tennessee offense that appears to be more varied than any Tennessee offense that Heupel has had in the past.
I think it is, and you've got a quarterback who fits the system just as Hendon Hooker did. You've got a tight end room that I think is very versatile. You got tight ends that are really good blockers. 2 years ago they had a very good versatile tight end in Princeton Fant, but I didn't think they had the depth that this group has. At receiver, I think they're very solid there. Dylan Sampson has proven himself to be an outstanding running back. Can Deshaun Bishop be an SEC caliber back? Probably. He's looked pretty good so far.
Looks so good.
And if they get Cam Seldon healthy. The thing about Oklahoma, when I watched them in their first game, their defense was really good. They're athletic. They're fast. It's going to be a challenge for Tennessee, I think, to run the football against them. Certainly not like they did in some of these other games
last night. Yeah.
I mean, if they can get to 200 rushing yards, I think that's a win against Oklahoma. But the thing I love about Tennessee's offense and the versatility you're talking about, If you load the box, they can throw it. If you spread the field, they can run it. They seem to have an answer for whatever you want to do, and they've got the personnel to take advantage of that as well.
Well, and you've had games where the tight ends have been used as blockers. You've had games where the tight ends have been used as receivers. Against NC State, the way they were coming at them defensively, they hit them with a shovel pass 3 times in that game. They seem to have more options to bring your way. Will, in terms of this Oklahoma defense, they've already racked up 11 sacks. Tennessee's offensive line may be one area where, look, I'm not going to give you a ton of credit for Kent State and Chattanooga. I'm sorry. I don't know that they've been tested like they're going to be tested in this opener. Your thoughts on that matchup?
This will be the best defensive line they faced this year. NC State's is no match compared to this defensive line. I mean, they had a guy yesterday, Mason Thompson, had 3 sacks in the game and pass breakup. So, I mean, they've got athletes up front, and they run games. They run stunts. So it's not just cannot beat the one-on-one guy, but after that happens for a little bit, they're going to start shifting those tackles and ends, and that's when the offensive line has to communicate and play together and understand that. So I think this is going to be the largest challenge. As we talked about at the beginning of this year, the 2 question marks were still going to be offensive line and your DBs. This is the game where you actually say, what have we gotten better? Where are those 2 groups at? You're going to find out in this type of game.
Sterling, this offense, your thoughts about the O-line. Look, I know you're going to say yes, they're ready, but let me give you a different challenge here.
Okay.
What's your concern about the O-line? If I said, put a gun to your head, a finger gun to your head, what's your concern about the offensive line specifically at this point?
It would be the noise. It would be the noise and the continuity of having the snap going in unison to keep that rhythm going with the offense. Probably not using the cadence much. Normally, although they have less fans, they have as much noise as we have in Neyland, so they're going to be aiming that noise toward us. When we create that noise factor in Neyland, we always say, quiet, please, offense at work. So that's going to be some of the concerns I have with the O-line, being cohesive with the quarterback's call, the no snap and all that, the no cadence snap and everything else. But what I like about, to piggyback on some of the things Jimmy said, is I like our personnel, man. I think they're going to be out there trying to be mano with us. That's going to give us an opportunity to show how good our personnel is. I think we've got some matchups that we can take advantage of, provided we have the time, the O-line, and the cohesiveness of the offense does not break down on the road.
Go ahead, Will.
The 2 tight ends is going to help you in a game like this if you find your offensive line is not winning the matchups. That is definitely an advantage because when the 2 tight ends come out, the defense has to respond as if it's going to be a run play. They have to have run personnel out there, and they have to be heavy. So then if those guys line up in different positions, all of a sudden now it can be 4 wide. Now they don't have the right personnel. So this can help. Those 2 tight ends and showing that 12 personnel is going to help and give Oklahoma a lot of plays that they have to go, hey, on this play, if we get caught in this, we're not going to be in good shape. You guys are going to have to make a play on that play.
And to flip to the defensive side of the ball, like Will flip to the offensive side of the ball, I'm excited about this challenge for the DB. Because Coach Martinez put a lot of work into those guys. And they're going to get an opportunity to show how much better they've got.
Okay, we'll flip it to the defensive side of the ball in the next segment. Jimmy, you were going to jump in there?
Yeah, I don't think Tennessee has used all their tools in the tool. I think you're going to see a few different alignments. It may be a stack formation, trips on one side, whatever. I think they've got a few things ready for Oklahoma, and you can bet Josh Heupel will use them against his former team.
Yeah, exactly. Who he didn't have a very nice parting of the ways with either. The thing to me that I look at, and Sterling's talking about the personnel all being better. I agree. I mean, I went all in on the defense after the NC State game. But I now have concerns about NC State. I don't think they're a bad team. They're not Kent State or Chattanooga. But this Tennessee team, to me, I still feel it's incomplete until I see them go against this Oklahoma team. And my fear is, you're right, I think Tennessee's probably got as good of athletes or better. I think Georgia has 10 times the athletes as Kentucky. And they were in a, no pun intended, dogfight last night. Sometimes when you go on the road, the team with the best athletes, it doesn't always come through. I just think this is the game. We've been through 3 hors d'oeuvres. It's time for the main meal, and I'm looking forward to it. All right, when we come back on the Sports Source here from Smoky Stadium, and by the way, I was told to point this out. I said it's the last game ever here, last regular season game here. They're going to make the playoffs, but last regular season, last regularly scheduled, planned game right here coming your way on WAT this afternoon. When we come back, let's talk about when Oklahoma has the ball, how's Tennessee going to stop Jackson Arnold? Come on back. Welcome back into the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by Daniel Hood Roofing. Homeowners always focus on the roof, and for good reason. A leaky roof can do some serious damage to your home. But gutters are also vital to leak prevention. And the best time to get them checked and replaced is in the fall before all the leaves start to fill them up. Call Daniel Hood Roofing this week. They'll come out, give it a look, tell you what you need to do, and take care of it for you. DanielHoodRoofing.com. All right, take a look here. When Oklahoma has the ball, we've got some numbers showing you what the Sooners have done on offense and what Tennessee's allowing on defense. Vols allowing 4.3 points per game, so giving up 2 safeties, which would be the offense. You look at those numbers for Tennessee, giving up 55 rush yards a game, 105 pass yards, 160 yards a game. Third down percentage allowing only 15%. Oklahoma's offense, only 30% on third downs. It's one to watch. Their run game has not gotten off to the start that they would like. Jackson Arnold is their 5-star quarterback. You heard Marlon and Daniel talking about them earlier. Jackson Arnold has not had the hot start that Nico Iamaleava has had at Tennessee. But here's the thing. He's the first quarterback dual threat that Tennessee will have faced this year. I mean, no offense to Grayson McCall, but he's no Jackson Arnold. Arnold leads that team in rushing as well as passing. This is a guy that you have to be concerned about getting outside on you.
Absolutely. This is a defensive line game that the defensive line's game is, hey, we're going to get to the quarterback, but we have to get to the quarterback responsibly. We can't just make and go around and do our own thing. We've got to work together as a group and basically close the walls on Jackson Arnold. And so they're going to have to play a disciplined pass rush. You can't just free will and do what you want to do. You got to say, I got to stay within my lane. If I get past his depth, I've got to retreat and come back. But it's all about contain, because if you look at their offense, you take him away, especially his legs away, and he's not making that, this is going to be a tough game for them to score a lot of points. So they have to, that defensive line front, the other way they will go about this is you take somebody like an Arian Carter and you say spy Arnold. And so that will also give them another chance. If he starts getting loose or getting out, expect them to take one of their linebackers and to spy him for that part of the game to take that away. But those are the things they have to go look at.
Let's marry 2 things here, because you're talking about the defensive line going after Oklahoma's quarterback. They've given up 9 sacks on the year. Jackson Arnold's been under duress. We also look at the fact that this is going to be a real test for Tennessee's secondary, unless that defensive line has Arnold running for his life all game, which he's been doing a lot so far this season. Bob, your thoughts on the D-line getting to Arnold and trying to protect that secondary for Tennessee?
You go back to Josh Heupel's first year, and what almost every decent offense they played, the quarterback ran crazy against that defense.
Yeah.
Because you did marry things up.
Even Kenny Pickett.
Kenny Pickett,
yes.
Matt Corral
Yes.
did the exact same thing. So now you've got better defensive players, you got better athletes. So I think your 4 guys, or 5 if you put a spy out there, is going to free your defensive backs up to be able to play more man-to-man, play a little bit more press coverage, be able to get up on the receivers a lot tighter. And the thing is, if you're in man-to-man, a lot of time that defensive back has his back to the quarterback, and that's when they would take off running. Hopefully that is not going to be an issue. So you're going to be able to go multiple on your defense against these guys. And from what I've seen, and I've liked the first 3 games so much, has been the tackling of the DBs. And if you watch Kentucky and Georgia yesterday, at the end of the game, Kentucky started missing tackles. And that basically cost them the ball game. Okay, it was a 5-yard gain turned into a 12-yard gain. If you stop Oklahoma from doing that, go back to the stats that they've had, I think that puts you in a pretty nice place defensively. If tackle.
Jimmy, they've got some good receivers at Oklahoma. They've got one guy in particular they go to all the time, Deion Burks. He's 5'9". Yeah. He's got 22 catches already, 169 yards and 3 touchdowns. Tennessee took Kevin Concepcion of NC State out of the game. Mm-hmm. How much are you concerned about the secondary? I mean, again, you look at it, you say they took Concepcion. What more do they have to prove? I always want to see more. So, Howard, what's your feeling about the secondary going against this Oklahoma team?
Well, to me, it's still unproven, but I'm with Bob and the others. This is a better tackling secondary than what Tennessee's had. Burks is a transfer from Purdue. He is a good receiver. One of their other guys that I thought would be a good receiver for him, Nick Anderson's been hurt. He's a guy that per catch last year, his touchdown ratio was ridiculous. But they don't have anybody else that can really take the top off of defense. So I think the secondary, with the help of the pass rush, I think they're going to fare pretty well. But again, we haven't seen them go against a quarterback that's got 3.5 seconds to throw it and how they would do. So the other part of that is Oklahoma, to me, is not impressing me with their run game. They ran for 185 against Tulane. More than half of that was from Arnold. They have decent running backs, but nobody that really scares you. They don't have a Dylan Sampson.
They had a young guy that got in yesterday. It's like 3 yards per carry, but I went to some of the Oklahoma sites this morning. They were excited he was getting in there. 27 yards. Yeah, they're excited. So which goes to the fact that they haven't found an answer yet.
Yes.
They're excited. Oh, they're going to the freshman who was like 9 carries for 27 yards, and that's what they're excited about.
So they got 16 points against Houston. They average less than 350 yards a game, right? I have trouble seeing them getting more than 20 points against Tennessee. Now, if you don't get more than 20 against Tennessee, Josh Heupel's record is pretty good, isn't it?
Pretty good. We showed
Well,
earlier.
you go back to before the season too, Oklahoma offensive line problems. I think what you've seen from their offense, that's been borne out. You don't run that well, you've given up the 9 sacks.
And you knew it was going to be a questions. They brought in so many new guys on the offensive line anyway, and then they're banged up on top of it. So, all right, thanks to these guys. Bob, I know you got to get out of here. Good luck to the Vikings.
Thank you very much.
Even from Smoky's Park, you've got to get back to that Vikings party. Good deal. When we come back, what are we doing next? Oh, you know what? It's handled. I'll send it back to Josh, Daniel, and Marlon back at WATE. They're going to talk about advice they may have for Nico. He says he likes road games. Yeah, well, now he's going to get an SEC road game in a loud environment. Let's hear from Marlon and Daniel on what life was like for them on the road in the SEC. We'll talk VFL experience next. Come on back on the Sports Source.
Welcome back into the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by Safety Systems, home and commercial security systems, life safety systems, home automation. If you have a need in one of those areas, there is only one company to call. That company is Safety Systems. VFL JJ Surlis and his team have been Knoxville's leaders for more than 2 decades. Find out why. Call them. Call Safety Systems. Back here in the Junk Beyond studios, Marlon, Daniel, as we look ahead to next week, right here, guys, on WATE, with the national ABC broadcast, Tennessee and Oklahoma. Oklahoma making its SEC debut. The build-up to that, Oklahoma fans will be excited about. Josh Heupel, you might have heard, played quarterback at Oklahoma. And I think fans will be excited to welcome him back, but also try to beat him. There will also be that conversation on the Tennessee side. And then there is Nico. Nico on the road, he said back in August, he actually prefers going on the road, loves that kind of environment of us against everybody else. But Norman is different probably than any environment that Nico has seen. So you guys went on the road in the SEC. What would you tell Nico about life on the road, going out and playing in a tough environment in the SEC?
I would say that he's about to see a crowd that he's never seen in California playing high school football. The road is different. It's the SEC. You've got Oklahoma their first year in the SEC. Their fans are excited, feeling like they belong or trying to prove that they belong. The road is tough because things happen fast. The snowball effect happens faster. So when you're on the road, you've got to be even 3 times more locked in. Your communication's got to be better, and you've got to be up for the challenge. Every bad play, that's momentum for them. The crowd gets involved. It's a little bit more exciting, and as a road team, it's harder to get back in control of the ball game when you're on the road, especially 7:30 Norman, Oklahoma. It's going to be a crazy atmosphere, and so I would just say that it's protect the snowball effect. Make sure your conversation, your communication with your guys are effective, and it can get away from you fast.
You know, and Marlon and I can really tell you what not to do on the road because we were debating this off air. We had one game that we came back a winner from a true road game that you took an airplane to.
Do you want to bring that up, Marlon?
And You know,
I've had to
so-
tell them beforehand,
that
don't
stat
say
now?
that. Don't say. But go
So,
ahead.
hey, the facts are the facts. But, you know, I think Marlon hit it on the head. You got to focus. And when you got to get locked in these road games, everything is compounded over there. And you get so much time in the hotel room to think about all the different things and your walkthroughs. But you still have to be focused. And when you get in there to see 80,000, 90,000, 100,000 people rooting against you and just waiting for your failure, you can either succeed and it motivates you, or it can really tank you. And it's going to be this is an Oklahoma team that have been told for the last 20 years you're not good enough to play in the SEC, and now they get this game against Tennessee, one of the premier schools right now.
Yeah.
They're going to come out with a chip on their shoulder.
Most definitely.
Is this kind of the final question, or would it be among them at least, of if Tennessee can go and play well on the road? Some of the numbers from road games the last few years were covered. If they play well, Nico plays well on the road, what does that mean to you in terms of what this team can do if their first road game of the season in Norman, they play well?
Well, you know, Sunshine Dan over here is going to be all in, right? Put all my money on Tennessee every single game. Give me all of Chuck's money.
Yeah, the Cavaliers line, we're all anticipating what that's going to look like at the end of the show here.
I would say that if they can go out this week and it looked like we're not missing a beat, we're up for the challenge. Defense is flying around. Nico's doing his thing. He's able to find and beat coverages. His first true road test. Then I would tell you, just based off watching the Georgia game yesterday, we're going to be a big. I would say we've got a chance to go do something really, really special this year.
Say it with your chest what you really mean.
There you go. That's it.
James Pierce has to have 4 sacks.
He's got it.
Yeah, you have that side of the conversation as well. You want the defenders to react as well and make life difficult.
Yeah, most definitely.
For Oklahoma's quarterback, he has the home environment. You want to change things up.
Well,
on him.
you're talking about silencing a crowd.
Yeah.
When momentum is going on the road, that's a real thing. Momentum is rolling. The crowd's involved. It's exciting. The team is feeding off that energy, and as the road dog, you've got to figure out how to get back control of the game. And so a guy like James Pierce, right, who hasn't shown up much this season, I'm hoping that we're saving him for this game. Mm-hmm. That guy can silence the crowd and get the momentum back on your side. There's nothing worse than a big sack and a big momentum swing because of that sack. So that's something that's got to travel for sure.
Good stuff, guys. So Tennessee traveling to Oklahoma, the anticipation continues, anticipating the Cavaliers line, what that will look like. That's still to come when we come back. We head back to Smoky Stadium. The guys talk about the final regular season game in Kodak. That's next.
And welcome back into the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by Games and Things. Football season is here, then basketball, then baseball will restart up. It's time to treat yourself right. Shop for a new home theater seat, new home theater seating for your house. Nobody has more seats, more different types, more different options on those different chairs, and great prices. Games and Things. Get down to the corner of Lovell Road and Kingston Pike this week. Check them out. Tell Scott and Lisa Mellon we said hello. They are the best. All right, back with Chuck Cavaleris and Jimmy Himes here at Smoky Stadium. Opened in 2000, and we're going to do the Cavaliers line. You've already got it tucked away. I've got it. That's coming, so we still got predictions. But today, the final regular season game here at Smoky Stadium. They moved up here in 2000. The city of Knoxville, the Smokies tried. They actually had designs from HOK, one of the best design firms in the country. They wanted a downtown ballpark. I'll speak for myself here and just say city leadership at the time was backwards and stupid and let a minor league professional team leave town. And it's good that there's new leadership in town and they're bringing the Smokies back where they should be. But Chuck, I want to start by talking about what a good life raft this has been for the last quarter century here in Kodak.
It's been awesome, especially getting hooked up with the Cubs, the affiliation with the Cubs. The
perfect time.
Exactly. Cubs win the World Series. And last season, the Smokies win the Southern League for the first time since back in the old Bill Meyer days. And we look at this, John, and it's such a neat place. $19.3 million is what it costs to build this. You know, like Jimmy, there's been a lot of venues up here, and it's a bittersweet day, and I hope they find a good use for this next, because that's really going to be important.
Jimmy. your thoughts? Did you have memories of this place, or you want to turn it back to Knoxville?
Well, I've had some memories. I've been to a number of birthday parties. Sorry, I missed yours, Chuck. You had it here. But family gatherings and just a really good place to come to have outings like that. So that's been special through the years.
And this is our second sports source here. Many years ago, you were on that show, Chuck.
Yeah.
We actually taped a show here. That was back before we were on WATE. And a foul ball hit above us, and all the rest of us jumped. Bob Hodge, who's used to gunfire, just sat right through it. Didn't even hear it.
Like one year, John, I won a fear factor contest here, and what I had to do, they put like an aquarium over my head, and it had Madagascar cockroaches, and I had to sit there. Yes, and they were in there for like a minute, and I had to take it, and I ended up winning the whole fear factor.
That's reason enough to leave this place. No, I'm kidding.
Okay.
All right, so moving back to Knoxville, Randy Boyd, current leadership in Knoxville, smart enough to realize. You look at exit 407. This was an empty exit at the time.
Right.
Now, I bet Bob Hodge left here to go to Bass Pro Shop. You've got commerce. You've got businesses here.
Yeah.
The city of Knoxville wasted 25 years when they could have been doing that downtown. Now you're starting that with Randy Boyd and the current leadership in downtown.
I pass that park every day on Sunday, every Sunday when I drive to see the sports source. It's right on my way there, and I see the progress that they've made. I think it's going to be a huge success. You've got apartments there, you're going to have restaurants there, businesses there. I think it's going to be tremendous. I think you'll see it packed a lot because people want to go see baseball. And by the way, I think the Vols have made baseball popular as well. So
Yes, it's a good time to be moving back into Knoxville.
it is.
Yeah,
and so I think it's going to be really neat for the folks in Knoxville.
And the key thing is it's going to be a multi-use facility. I mean, one neat aspect, it's got a retractable mound. So they can
just drop
retract.
that thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's really neat. So they're going to be playing soccer there, and concerts there, and it's just been 25 years too late.
It was a missed opportunity. It was a missed opportunity, and instead you I don't want to go back and beat this drum, but we were talking about earlier. You let an aquarium go away,
Right.
and then you put up things that didn't work. So for the city of Knoxville to have its minor league baseball franchise back, to take the name Tennessee and change it back to Knoxville, I think that adds a civic pride. There's something to be said for community having a spot where people gather, come together, watch a sport, pull together. I just think that it enhances the fabric of a town to have minor league sports and to have a really nice jewel of a ballpark. And I'm glad that Knoxville is finally getting in line with darn near every southern city in the country that's already done this.
Yeah, and I think it's exciting for Knoxville to get this. And here's also the thing about minor league baseball. You're not always married to whether or not they're winning their division or their pennant. You want to go for the outing. You want to go see players like Chris Bryant who are on their way to the major leagues. And you want to have a family outing. You want to have, and if you love baseball, just for the purity of the baseball. So I think there's just a lot of good things about having it back in Knoxville.
Absolutely, I agree. All right. You ready with the Cavaliers line?
Yes, sir.
Okay. When we come back, we are going to be bringing you the Cavaliers line. We're going to make our picks. Will and Sterling are here to make their picks. We'll kick it back to Knoxville and let Josh, Marlon, and Daniel make their picks. We got wagers to come. We'll show you who's in first, and we'll show you who's in last. Come on back on the Sports Source. Couldn't wait. Welcome back into the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by Hearthside Bank. Hearthside Bank offers personal banking, business banking, financial planning, digital banking, mortgages. I've got a friend who's had 3 different mortgages from he and his wife, his children. Everybody goes through Hearthside Bank. They're all happy. Everything you would expect in a top-flight bank, and now they've got a branch in Knoxville, right out in Farragut. They've got branches all over southeastern Kentucky and East Tennessee, from Harlan to Farragut. Visit hearthsidebank.com today to learn more. All right, it's time for the Chucky C-Note Casino, and we're going to do the Beat the House segment. Charles, everybody laughed last week when you said 64.5 for the Oklahoma game. I mean, for the Kent State game. It turns out you were correct. Nice work on that front.
Thank you, sir.
All right,
Sir.
we've got you got about. Well, let's take a look at the standings here. Not a great week because we all laughed at you. Only Josh and Mike Stoll were plus 50. They didn't bet much, but they bet 50, so they went up. Bob went down 50, but he bet less than Daniel, so Bob is in first place, then Daniel, then Sterling, then Will, Josh, Marlon, Mike, and then Jimmy and myself down there at the bottom. We went too much in not believing in Chuck, so that won't happen again. All right, Chuck, let's go ahead and set your line. What do you got?
Well, I mean, it's very interesting, John. I've been checking some of the online sites. You got Tennessee minus 7.5 on 2 of them. You look at a couple of others, Oklahoma's favorite.
That's
minus
insane.
3.5. Now, that all may change, at noon or going on, but that's really surprising to me. When I look at this game, there's just one matchup that just jumps out, and I know Will's noticed it. It's the left side of that Oklahoma offensive line. Tennessee's defensive line, if it's one of the best in the country, I think they can feast on that. So I'm going to set this line. I'm tempted to set it higher, but I'm going to go Vols minus 8.5.
8.5 for the Vols, so 2 touchdowns is what we're going to have to say with the Vols and their first road game of the year at Oklahoma. All right, so I'm going to send it back to the studio. We need these picks to be quick, but let's get the picks and the wagers from Josh, Daniel, and Marlon. Josh.
All right, John, thank you very much. As the one guy that believed in the Vols last week, Marlon, Daniel, you are ahead of us in the standings. So you heard that line, Vols minus 8.5. Which way do you go? How much?
I'm going $300. Chuck set it up perfectly. Give me the Vols.
All right, 300 on Tennessee. Marlon?
You
have 450 to work with.
Step up.
450 to work
So
with.
half of that or less.
Let's go 225 on the Vols. I believe we get them past 8.5. I think we get them.
Okay. Can we do the 25 if you have to do 200? Oh, I guess he'll knock you down to 200 if you can't do the 25.
Knock me down.
I will go 100 on the Vols, John. 100 on the Vols minus the points.
All right, Josh Ward, thank you very much. Here's what they did. Daniel put 300 on the Vols. Josh put 100 on the Vols. Marlon put 225 on the Vols. I thought 8.5 would be high enough to split the panel. I don't think it's going to. Will Overstreet. By the way, thanks to the Smokies, you can't be at the ballpark without getting a dog and a beer. So, in honor of James Earl Jones, who died this week, and Field of Dreams, his famous line, dog and a beer, when he goes to Fenway Park, like a dog and a beer. What are you doing, Will?
I'm going to take 100 and I'm put it on the Vols. I just think defense is strong enough this week that I think we still got them.
All right, Will Overstreet. Rain Cloud putting $100 in the Vols minus 8.5 at Oklahoma. Who would have thought that when Josh Heupel was hired? Sterling Hinton, the center
I'm going
man.
on this one, John P. 250 on the Vols, baby. 250. Let's go.
250 on the
Yes,
Vols.
sir.
All right, I'll get Bob and Mike later, or will I? Jimmy.
I'm going to go Tennessee. They're going to cover. They're going to get an onside kick in the second half, turn it into a score, and cover the spread.
So how much you wagering? 100. You can wager up to 200. 100. Okay, 100 on UT. I'll take 200 on UT. I am absolutely a lemming at this point, so I'm in with everybody else. We got about a minute here. Now that we've all made our pick, Oklahoma has only lost 5 home games in the last 10 years. 5 home games since 2015. That's all they've lost. Tennessee has only held 2 opponents on the road in their building under 24 points under Josh Heupel. Both were several years ago. LSU, they held to 13. Vandy, they shut out. Other than that, everybody else has scored at least 24. Does that cause any wavering?
Yes.
Could have used that information a minute ago.
Yes. I didn't know about the 5 home losses in 10 years. That's
pretty good, yeah. The interesting thing to me, and we've only got about 30 seconds here, I think a lot of this game is going to come down to Nico and his poise. He's shown a lot of it. To go on the road, it's all going to flow through him. I think they're going to go as he goes. So this is really a test of a young man's poise.
Yeah. Defensive line travels too.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm putting my money basically in this game.
Sterling,
That
final
travels.
word.
Final word, Vols by 14.
Very good. Jimmy Himes, Sterling Hinton, Chuck Cavaleris, Will Overstreet. Bob Hodge, Daniel Hood, Marlon Walls, Josh Ward. Thanks to all those guys. Thanks to the folks back at the station. Thanks to the Smokies for having us up here. 2 o'clock, actually start the pregame show, 1:30 right here on Channel 6. See you next week on the Sports Source.